Good day. Welcome to another edition of Ebima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. Before I continue, I urge you to please press the like button. And if you're new to my show, I also urge you to subscribe. Today I want to start with a story that shows the interlinkages that somehow creates geopolitical ripples and change history as we know it. As you all know, I like the Ottoman Empire. I always talk about the Ottoman Empire. And today I want to start my story in Baghdad in the 1880s. In 1820s to 1830s, there was a family in Baghdad, a rich Jewish family, because they were treasurers and wealthy business people. Their family name was Sassoon. And the character I'm talking about here now is a man whose imprint on geopolitics globally changed the world. His name was David Sassoon. Many people may not know this name. You will never have heard of it. He was a Jewish Baghdadi. And what was David Sassoon's role? He was a treasurer, and a pasha came onto the scene who was not too comfortable with him. So this pasha persecuted him to the extent that David Sassoon took his family and left Baghdad. He was always an Iraqi at heart, and he was always an Ottoman at heart, always was. But he had to leave, and he moved where? Bombay, India. And when he moved to India, it was very consequential. Not for the people of India, but for two geopolitical juggernauts that still flex their geopolitical muscles till today. One was Britain, very much in love with tea, very much in love with silk and Chinese porcelain, but didn't know what to sell to the Chinese. Their treasury was running dry. They were just sending money one way to China. The other, as I've already said, is China. China was the leading country in the world regarding trade. They were by far the biggest country economically in GDP terms at that time, the Qing dynasty China. But there was a little problem. Somehow, Arab traders and merchants have come to find one product that was doing very well in the Chinese market, and that product was opium. Arab traders had found out that the Chinese like opium. And when Sassoon came into into Bombay, he too realized that he could jump in on this trade. He did. He jumped into that trade, and he showed extraordinary know-how, ability, and skills. Within a decade, David Sassoon was the largest producer and seller of opium to the Chinese. And the Chinese didn't like it. The Qing dynasty didn't like it. So what did they do? They tried to stop this trade. But this trade was beneficial to the British. For the very first time, the British were able to get silver from China. And how was this happening? The traders who sold to the Chinese got silver, and they were now sending the silver to England. Anyway, David Sassoon was very good at what he did, and it became too good that the Chinese Qing dynasty decided to stop this trade. They tried to enforce a stop of this trade. They failed. They failed because they lost the first Opium War. Eventually, again, about a few years later, a decade later, they lost the second Opium War. Qing dynasty China was forced to consume opium. And one of the great merchants, very great merchants in running out the competition, I should add, at that time included some British firms called Jardine Matheson, Dent & Co., and Arab traders. But the Sassoon, he opened his company, he called it Sassoon and Sons, David Sassoon and Sons. He later changed it to David Sassoon and Co. They were very good at it. They will buy from the Chinese their silver. They will take also tea and silk to England, and then they will bring back some goods from England. But one thing they did also was that they also sold cotton to the English. Because it so happened at that same time, in the USA got their independence and cut off the cotton trade to Britain. So the British um, cotton gins and all those places where they produce goods, they didn't have supplies. So David Sassoon had a three-way trade between England, China, and India. It was very good. Why do I bring this long story and all that? Oh, we know all the impact of the Opium War. The Opium War led to 100 years of humiliation for the Chinese. They were addicted, 10 million Chinese were addicted over a course of time, much more than that. And the Qing dynasty ultimately became a feat, and Puyi was their last emperor. Let me just put it like that. Anyway, coming on to today now, what we're just saying is that the British were able to impose their will. That is the whole essence of this whole story. They imposed their will on China, forced them to continue to take opium, and they changed their own destiny, and they have a lot to thank for David Sassoon. In fact, David Sassoon's son he was knighted in England later on because he reinvented himself, schooled in England, became a knight, and he also married a Rothschild. He moved up the ladder. They were a very successful family because they went into philanthropy and did a lot of things. In this modern day, we see a situation where Europe, for over 500 years, they had determined the destiny of the world, but that is no more the case anymore. A few hundred years ago, they were pushed out of America. But over the course of time, they've continued to exert influence. After all, they controlled Britain, they controlled China, and they controlled Africa. They controlled the whole of South America. But now we see a situation where England is in decline. Europe is in decline. No doubt about it. They're in decline. They can't impose themselves as they used to once were able to impose themselves. A very clear case here now is a very simple company called Nexperia. Nexperia is a Dutch company. They decided to impose some form of trade restrictions on a Chinese firm that is owned by Nexperia, that is owned by a Chinese firm, Wingtech, and they just didn't get their way. They didn't get their way. We see these days that anytime Europe tries to do any trade action against China, China takes retaliatory actions that is very devastating to the European economy, and they always back down. The Dutch government ultimately has backed down from its seizure of Nexperia. But today also something very consequential happened. Now I want to talk about another person. First, I started with David Sassoon. Now I want to talk about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is trying to change, and indeed he has changed the world as we know it, because Elon Musk's role in the coming into being of the Trump presidency is well acknowledged. And this Trump presidency, whether you like it or not, has reshaped geopolitics completely. So today, Elon Musk is in the eye of the storm. And why do I say this? Because Elon Musk bought Twitter. He said, why did he buy Twitter? He wants to protect First Amendment. He believes people should be able to say what they want to say. It's a First Amendment right of the Americans. But he also wants to extend this concept that is uniquely American to Europe. Europe will not have it. So what did Europe do? Europe decided to make their own laws, many laws. Some people who run social media platforms are falling foul to those laws. And some people who post and reshare, even to reshare some posts on social media, fall foul of this law. And especially in Britain, particularly. And we know the case of the owner of Telegram, who also used the laws that control censorship and all kinds of controls of social media was used against Europe. But there is an attempt also to try and get Elon Musk reined in. That's caused some new problems for the Europeans. So here we have European Commission put out a tweet, says, today we find X for non-compliance with transparency obligations under the Digital Services Act. We are holding X accountable for deceptive design of its blue checkmark, lack of transparency in its advertising repository, failure to provide access to public data for researchers. Well, you can see the reply there of Elon Musk. Elon says bullshit. Let me rephrase that. He said something. We can all see what he said. Anyway, JD Vance also said something, and JD Vance put the fact that JD Vance is the American vice president, and America is weighing in very heavily on this action of the European Union. He says rumors swirling that the EU Commission will fine X hundreds of millions of dollars for not engaging in censorship. The EU should be supporting free speech, not attacking American companies over garbage. Secretary Marco Rubio also said the European Commission's 140 million fine just isn't an attack on X, it's an attack on all of American tech platforms, the American people by foreign governments. The days of censoring Americans online is over. And then we have a situation here too where the EU, Elon Musk also responded to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz put out his own tweet and Elon Musk responded. Ted Cruz's tweet says, EU Commission's 140 million fine on X is an abomination. It is an attack on great American job creators, and it is an attack on the free speech of every American. Elon now says the European EU imposed this crazy fine not just on X, but also on me personally, which is even more insane. Therefore, it will seem inappropriate to apply our response not just to EU, but also to the individuals who took this action. What Elon is saying and what the American politicians are saying is that you can't extend your strong arm of European citizens this way to American institutions. We have seen many times America has pushed back when the EU has fined Google, has fined Meta, has fined all the American digital services company, because unfortunately for the EU, they don't have their own versions of Amazon, their own versions of Facebook, their own versions. The EU is left behind digitally. They used to be the point of source of innovation. They tended to innovate and make this world, give all the services and goods to this world that created the mighty empires that we know, the British, the French, and all the empires that straddled Europe. But not these days. These days, they depend on Chinese and American technologies, even in the digital sphere, in the military sphere, all over. They are vassals, unfortunately. So they can be told what to do. And then we know that Donald Trump has already pushed back against any attempt to fine American companies. And it is very important to know that he will make a statement. And I can say, I can conjecture, I can predict that definitely they're going to push back against it. And Europe is very much in their own 100 years of shame. Well, to emphasize this change in the European reality, the Americans today brought out a big national security strategy. And the new national security strategy emphatically says where America is now looking towards. The national security strategy is one that tends to outline American policy going forward. It says, so they say United States will no longer prop up the entire world order like Atlas and wants other countries to assume responsibility for regional defense. The White House intends to align the actions of our allies and partners with its own joint interest to prevent domination by any single national competitor. This is very important because it is these issues that has defined America for a long time. America has been one that neocons, and particularly the countries that want America to be in Europe and also want America to be an enemy of any other great power like the Soviets or the Chinese. You may not believe it, but there are some countries who have been very successful in making America to pursue their own agendas. The most notable, of course, we all know, is the British. The British have continually, over the past 80 years, gotten their own agenda by using American resources. Another country also in the Middle East has always been Israel. So in this statement here that the National Security Strategy of the United States, November 2025, We saw in its particular engagement with Europe. Let me take that with Europe. It says the US administration finds itself at odds with Europe officials, many of whom trample on basic principles of democracy. This is very imperative to talk about because we know what has happened in Romania. We know what happened in some of the countries that were having elections that were tending towards favoring candidates that wanted an end to the Ukraine war. Europe pushed back. They also have pushed back very seriously against any form of viewpoints that oppose that of the European Union. And it is for that reason why Viktor Orban, it is for that reason why the Czech Robert Fico is not particularly well loved in the European Union circle. So these are the kind of talk that they want to move against. What happened in Romania was totally not good. What happened in Moldova also was seen. They tend not to believe, they believe their ideology, but they think the world is not sane. That's not democracy anymore. So the White House expects to build up the healthy nations of Eastern and Central Europe through commercial and defense deals. The White House is making some serious pronouncement. This is a sad day for neocons. Neocons are those group of people in America and Europe who have always wanted a continuation of antagonism towards people who don't share their beliefs, the neoliberal beliefs that they push. Globalist beliefs that usually run counter to some cultural norms among many countries in the world. The White House expects to build a healthy relationship. Washington has rejected the disastrous climate change, net zero ideologies that have so greatly harmed Europe, threatened the United States, and subsidize our diversity. But yeah, let's also talk about what that security document said about the U.S. relationship with Russia. The United States considers a reestablishment of strategic stability with Russia one of the key foreign policy priorities in Europe. This is a nuclear bomb. It's a nuclear bomb, as far as I'm concerned, to the European establishment. It is, this one phrase here will give ulcer to some politicians in London, Paris, Berlin, Strasbourg, all the usual places that we know they're globalists. No less also to those people who already may have paid their ticket, booked their hotels for Davos, conferences in Davos. So this is not what they're going to like at all. The core interest of US is the cessation of hostilities in Ukraine. One other thing too is that he also talked about the Middle East. He says the White House no longer views the Middle East as a dominator factor in determining foreign policy. The United States intend to work to stabilize Syria and transform it, and Washington should stop trying to push Middle Eastern countries to abandon their traditions. Reforms in religion will be encouraged, but without attempt to impose them on outsiders. This is one of the biggest problems. We have all these concepts that are very inimical and very at variance with many cultures all around the world. One of the big push against EU is migration, and then LGBT ideas. All these things, they are very conservative and they have strong pushback in many cultures, especially in Africa, in other cultures, but they are being rammed down with every other civilization. If you want loan from IMF, you have to have this kind of laws that protect this. It's at variance. They've tied it, they've weaponized every system of aid or every system of assistance and every system of development. They've tied them to all such onerous laws, and it has become a very big problem. And it is this problem now that has led to the growth of China and the growth of Russia amongst a vast amount of countries. President Trump's actions have now been seen. It was rewarded today. I should be taking this segment as my very last. But since we're talking about the theme of peace, he has already initiated quite a lot of peace processes. He has already put all these points that are part of the security strategy has already been talked about in his peace initiatives, whether they are successful, whether they are not, he has put himself now and put on the garb of a peace leader. However you see it, that's what he wants to do. He says he has ended he has brought peace to 4 countries. The last one, obviously, was that the White House hosted the Rwandan president, Paul Kagame, and then the Congolese president, Tshisekedi. This region has been in conflict for several years. That is true. There has been millions of deaths. That also is true. Maybe not 10 million, as he always says, but there's always been conflict for a long time because Congo, unfortunately for them, is the richest country in the whole of Africa by way of mineral resources. They are rich beyond belief. They hold a whole variety of rare earths and common earthly metals, ores, copper, goods and metals that are very important to a wide range of applications. And it will surprise you to know that it was from Congo that the uranium that ultimately was used in the Manhattan Project that turned out to be the bombs that they were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima came from that country. They have been rich for a long time, and exploitation of those riches has been the challenge, and it is for one of these reasons. This may be his motivation, but whatever his motivation is, indeed, he has put peace forward. And it is this peace that was rewarded today. A very auspicious day, though.
FIFA, the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, awards the 2025 FIFA Peace Prize, Football Unites the World, to Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, in recognition of his exceptional and extraordinary actions to promote peace and unity around the world. Friday, December 5th, 2025. This is the certificate. It's yours.
Yes, FIFA honored President Trump for all these actions that were outlined in this new national security. He already has been living it, and it has been causing a lot of problems for them. Since I'm talking about the theme about how geopolitics is changed, we should understand that when one party tries to impose itself on you and you choose not to agree to it, what they will do is that they will come and impose it by force of arms. China was told to open up their market to whatever product the British were selling. They shouldn't complain about it. And it was done to them by force of arms. One other country too that was forced to open their market up, I should point out at this point, was Japan. Admiral Perry just showed up on the Japanese coast, and Japan had been closed for over 500 years. And with just some cannon shots that he released into they understood the need, the there and present need to open up their markets. And they did. Japan opened up its market and found out that the American technology was much superior, and ultimately engaged in the Meiji Revolution that brought up development. So what I'm trying to say is that countries try to impose their will by war. We see how Hitler tried to impose his will. We see how Napoleon tried to impose his will. What was Napoleon's own intention? Was that continental Europe should not trade with Britain, because at that time, Britain was challenging its authority. This attempt to continue to impose will is always the cause of conflict. One country that has suffered an attempt, unfortunately, by the past American presidency and also the whole of the European Union institution is Russia. Russia has pushed back and trying to make their point known. This time around, they were the ones who initiated the military conflict. And they made this military conflict against a party that had made itself available to be used by the Europeans and the Americans, and that's Ukraine. They've had this war going on, but the West have also tried to impose their will, knowing that Russia has something you don't want to find out about, nuclear weapons, a lot of it. They chose to damage Russia economically. Same thing as Napoleon tried to do. They will try to impose sanctions to stop the whole world from trading with Russia. Russia has pushed back. Russia has succeeded on the battlefield, forced their own point of view, to be. They are still in the process of trying to force Europeans to accept their point of view. The Europeans are not anywhere near it. The Ukrainians are not anywhere accepting. But neither are they getting their way. So today the Russians have gone and they have had their relationship to show that they are not where the West would want them to be. They went to President Putin had a very successful visit to India. And what came out of that visit? I can tell you what came out of it. India is a linchpin in this push against the European agenda, and India and China. They're the ones that frustrated them. They're the ones. And unfortunately, the Europeans found themselves in a secular trade where, since they stopped buying Russian energy, the Indians are now the ones selling them Russian energy, refining it, and sending it to them. Unfortunately, energy is such an important commodity that they are not yet there. They don't have energy independence. Nobody has. And it is for that reason why Russia continues to be important. If Russia has 10 billion barrels of oil per day taken out of the market once like that, there will be a crash, calamitous crash in the market, and there will be a spike in oil prices. It's not even necessary to conjecture and think about it, but it won't be surprising if oil prices get to $150 per barrel if Russia decides to stop complete sales. So the Indians continue to say that they are doing a favor to the world by buying Russian oil. The Chinese also, Russian oil, any amount you have, bring, we are happy to have it. They pipe their oil to China, the Russia. So there was more discussions on energy security. They discussed continuation of the purchase. In fact, President Putin said that he is ready to continue to provide any amount, the word any was emphasized, amount of oil that the that the Indians want. No amount of sanctions, no amount of attack on the shadow fleet will affect it. So he said, and then their economic trade, they set a goal. They set a goal. This is what they do, these countries. They set a goal of 100 billion bilateral trade by 2030. Then they also talked about the civilian nuclear and space program. Agreements were made to expand the nuclear fuel supply, share technology. They already have sent some nuclear fuel recently. In the course of this meeting, they sent nuclear fuel. And then they also talked about small modular reactors. Small modular reactors are very cheap to produce, very effective. They produce by far less megawatts of energy, but they are still, they take care of at least they can take care of a city or two. So they are very important now. They don't have as much environmental impact as the larger models, and they are less expensive, and they come online very fast. So this is it. A defense cooperation also, they also had labor migration. We also saw that Russia wants to be able to get 2 million Indians to come work in their country in all sectors. Russia is a country now that has come to the realization that they have limitations in growth, and they have limitations in the labor available to them. 145 million people they are still short in terms of the booming economy, especially in manufacturing. And as long as they want to go into these spaces like AI and chip development, the current semiconductor development, we know the competencies of India. So we know in America, yeah, Indians are very, very much at the top of the heap of all these companies, all these IT companies, the Facebook, Meta, any company you call here, Amazon, NVIDIA, and Google, they are very much at the head of it. And then they also talked about the geopolitical stand. Putin questioned U.S. private tariffs on India, and he's asking why they should continue to tariff India. But we have seen in this document here now, that security document I mentioned earlier on, President Trump's administration actually said in their Indo-Pacific strategy that they are now focused fully in making better relationship with India. So India is eating its cake and having it. And this is what strategic ambiguity is that India does. They want to be close to America, but they also want to be close to China. I mean, close to Russia. Russia has been their traditional allies for a long time. I will just skim through the battle situation. The battle situation had only two major events today, and that was that one, Civex is almost overrun. Civex is almost overrun, and then two, Minigrad, it's tightening for them. There's the soldiers in Minigrad, the Ukrainian soldiers in Minigrad are now surrendering. They are surrendering and being destroyed. The space they have to operate, their operational space is becoming less and less. This is entry into Civex. This is Minograd. Minograd's it's almost completely taking over. And same thing to here. We have Civex direction. This is by Riba. He gives a much more clearer account about the Civex direction. So Civex is almost taken, almost. And Minograd is the Ukrainian soldiers in Minograd are seeing their last days. They either have to find a way to surrender or they may be destroyed. The Russians are throwing very huge 3,000 bombs on them. It's just not human, the kind of things we see. The destruction going on there, and General Sexy is still saying that Kupiansk is under the control of the Ukrainians. In fact, he said Pokros and Minograd is still. These days, you can't lie about it anymore. There are geolocations, there are videos, there are so many things, and the mapping agencies are like independent contractors. They say these things and they put it out there, and it is for that, and that is how they get their followers, and it is from their followers that they get their payment. So they put these things out there. Anyway, this is how I end my video for today. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. If you have any views regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Until my next video, you have a good day.